Imagine a 1,000-year-old empire crumbling in slow motion, its leader gripped by paranoia, staring across the border at a thriving neighbor that could unravel everything. In the shadowed halls of the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin didn't just see Ukraine as territory. He saw a mirror reflecting Russia's potential downfall. A democratic Ukraine, successful and free, wasn't just a rival, it was an existential threat, whispering to Russians of a life without autocracy. As tensions mounted in early 2022, the world watched, unaware of the deeper fears driving the invasion. What if this war was about survival, not of a nation, but of a regime? If you're hooked on uncovering the real power plays in European politics, hit that subscribe button now. It's like getting a backstage pass to the EU's most intense dramas. And who knows, you might even outsmart your next dinner party debate. Let's step back to the roots of this conflict, as if we're piecing together a geopolitical puzzle in a dimly lit Brussels conference room. According to historical analyses and verified reports, the story begins over a millennium ago with Kievan Rus, the medieval cradle of East Slavic civilization centered in what is now Kiev. Sources indicate that both Russia and Ukraine trace their heritage here, but their paths diverged dramatically. Ukraine evolved under Polish and Lithuanian influences, fostering a westward-leaning identity, while Russia's foundations in the Grand Duchy of Moscow absorbed Mongol administrative systems during centuries of domination. This historical schism, experts say, fuels Putin's narrative that Ukrainians and Russians are one people, a claim fact-checked and largely debunked by institutions like the University of Rochester as exaggerated or false. Fast forward to the post-Soviet era. When the USSR collapsed in 1991, Ukraine emerged as an independent state, the crown jewel of the former empire. Larger, more populous, and strategically vital than most ex-Soviet republics. Reports suggest Putin, shaped by his KGB background, viewed Russia's greatness through the lens of territorial expansion, from Peter the Great's era to the Soviet Union's peak. Losing Ukraine, as former Carnegie Moscow Center director Dmitry Trenin reportedly stated, would mean the disintegration of Russia's historical heartland, shattering the unity of Russian Orthodox civilization and exposing Russia's imperial origins as conquest-driven rather than organic. The timeline escalates in 2008 with Russia's invasion of Georgia, ostensibly to block its NATO path, exploiting alliance rules that prohibit membership amid active conflicts. Similar patterns emerged in Moldova with support for the breakaway region of Transnistria, and in Central Asia, where Moscow suppressed national identity to maintain alignment. But Ukraine posed a unique threat. By the 2010s, Ukraine's economy was rebounding and pivoting toward Europe, with birth rates improving after the 1990s plunge, contrasting sharply with Russia's ongoing demographic crisis. UN projections cited in reports forecast Russia's population dropping from 148 million in 1991 to potentially 74, 112 million by century's end, a 25 to 50% loss, exacerbated by restrictive immigration policies favoring ethnic Slavs. Enter 2014, the annexation of Crimea and the sparking of conflict in Donbas. Sources indicate this wasn't mere opportunism, but a calculated move to reclaim territory rich in resources. Ukraine holds the world's 8th largest coal deposits, 38 billion tons, mostly in Donbas. Vast iron ore, manganese, nickel, chromium, lithium, and rare earths, essential for electric vehicles and green energy. Natural gas reserves, estimated at 5.4 trillion cubic meters, lie predominantly in occupied areas. Controlling these, analysts argue, secures Russia's faltering economy, heavily reliant on oil and gas, 45% of its budget in the mid-2010 era, as the world shifts to renewables. Goldman Sachs forecasts suggest by 2035, 100% of EU vehicle sales and 70% in the US could be electric, with the EU targeting full independence from Russian energy by decade's end. Key players emerge in this thriller-like narrative. Putin, the central antagonist, stakes his regime on imperial revival. His July 2021 essay on the historical unity of Russians and Ukrainians laid the ideological groundwork. denying Ukraine's nationhood as an artificial construct meant to weaken Russia. EU diplomats monitoring from afar noted the rhetoric echoing World War II, framing the impending invasion as a battle against fascism to rally domestic support. On the Ukrainian side, leaders like President Volodymyr Zelensky embodied the democratic alternative, resilient, united, and defiant, that Putin feared most. Russian speakers in eastern Ukraine expected to welcome invaders instead joined the fight, debunking Kremlin assumptions. The full-scale invasion in February 2022, initially planned as a swift three-day operation, revealed deeper motivations, not just NATO expansion, dismissed by sources as a pretext, but fear of Ukraine's democratic success inspiring Russian dissent. A prosperous Western-integrated Ukraine would expose Russia's corruption and inefficiencies, potentially sparking internal unrest. Moreover, with Russia's population density a fraction of Ukraine's, under 9 people per square kilometer versus 70, absorbing Ukraine's 41 million citizens, culturally similar and demographically vital, could reverse Russia's spiral. Now, consider the strategic consequences for the European Union, where this crisis has tested unity like never before. EU leaders gathered in urgent summits faced immediate energy shocks as Russia weaponized gas supplies. Reports from Brussels indicate accelerated diversification, with LNG imports surging and renewable investments booming to counter dependency. Yet the war has strained alliances. Hungary's Viktor Orbán, often aligning with Moscow, has blocked aid packages, exposing fractures in EU solidarity. Economically, the conflict has inflated energy prices, fueling inflation and recessions in member states like Germany. Geopolitically, it has pushed Sweden and Finland into NATO, reshaping Europe's security architecture, but at the cost of prolonged instability on the EU's eastern flank. Deeper still, China's role looms as a shadowy ally. Post-2014 sanctions turned Russia into a client state, selling gas to Beijing at discounted rates, $271 per 1,000 cubic meters versus $481 to Europe. Trade volumes hit $244 billion by mid-2024, with China viewing Russia as a resource colony. Conquering Ukraine's assets gives Moscow leverage against Beijing. Failure means total subordination. For the EU, this Sino-Russian axis complicates global supply chains, especially in rare earths critical for the green transition. 3 years in, with 1.3 million Russian casualties and the economy warped, 40% of the 2025 budget on military, the war is unstoppable for Putin. Ending without victory risks a coup by security elites, as in the 1991 attempt against Gorbachev. Ceasefire demands, territorial cessions, neutrality, disarmament ensure rejection, allowing blame shifting. Projections warn of a grueling attrition war, potentially lasting 200 years with catastrophic losses. As the smoke clears over Ukraine's battlefields, one question haunts the corridors of power in Brussels. Can the EU hold together against this relentless assault on its values? Putin's gamble has not only entrenched division, but sown seeds of doubt about Europe's future. Will unity prevail, or will the Kremlin's shadows fracture the continent forever? The stakes couldn't be higher. Europe's soul is on the line. Before you go pondering that, if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. It's your witty reminder that staying informed is the best plot twist in this ongoing saga.